Welcome to the Saturday Cadence podcast. I'm Blake Biscardi, and remember, the Saturday Cadence podcast is the heartbeat of college football. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Welcome into Saturday Cadence. We've got Rivalry Week on deck, humongous games across the slate. Ohio State, Michigan tops the headlines this week. As always, the center of college football will be in Ann Arbor. Texas A&M, the Iron Bowl. So many games to get to on this episode. My name is Blake Biscardi. I'm your host, David Wertheim, joining me. David, before we hop into these games, let's talk about these CFP rankings that we saw. Okay, so Miami's sitting there at 12 right now. They're getting closer to that cluster with Notre Dame. We heard on the broadcast Tuesday night that they were actually considered close together in the same cluster for the first time, but head-to-head still has not carried the day for Miami. When you see something like that, when teams have played early in the year and there is an on-field result together, but Notre Dame is still ranked above them, how do you view that from the standpoint as either a fan or someone in the Miami program? Do head-to-head results need to carry the day in situations like this?
I mean, the committee all these years since the 14 playoff started has said it's about your overall body of work. That was the criteria they used the first time when Ohio State got in after their loss to Virginia Tech. And then ultimately they've used that criteria pretty much every year since. It's about the whole body of work. It's not how you start. And I think that's fair. And I think Notre Dame has really handled their business, whereas Miami has not, frankly. They've had a couple of disappointing losses, whereas Notre Dame has kind of recovered there after two losses to open the year, one to a team that's undefeated and the other to a team that's in the top 12. So, I understand the argument on both sides, but it's just basic committee logic, really. This is how it's always been done, and no reason to expect it to change.
David, Notre Dame is trending in a completely different direction than Miami, although now Miami's starting to play better. They have one more game against Pitt, and I think that's what's going to be interesting here with these two teams. Neither of them going to get an opportunity in a conference championship game. So I don't see a reason to believe Miami's actually going to jump Notre Dame. Would you correct me on that? Because Notre Dame's got to play Stanford this weekend, and they should win the game by double digits. Miami has a road game against Pitt. I don't think beating Pitt, even on the road, is enough to jump 3 spots to go ahead and climb over Notre Dame.
I would agree. I don't think it's enough. I thought Miami could maybe get in with some help. I think they need 2 other teams to lose. I don't remember who it is. But ultimately, you lost those 2 games early in the year, and that's what happens. And Miami's probably going to be on the outside looking in. I agree. If things hold up and they don't get to play in that championship game, then they will not jump those 3 spots now.
Because it would be unlikely that all of a sudden, just because one more game is played, that the committee decides to say, oh, well, head-to-head is going to matter now because the bodies of work are complete. I think if head-to-head was going to matter, we would have seen it this week or even earlier in the polls. But there's been clear separation between the two teams all the way. It is shrinking, but again, I don't think there's going to be enough. But David, another team just outside the bracket right now with an opportunity to get into the field, I think, is Michigan. They're sitting at 15. They have Ohio State coming to town on Saturday. If Michigan wins, are they looking at a win and in situation here as an at-large team into the playoff field?
I think they are. I think they want to get a 4th Big Ten team in, and then obviously Ohio State, Indiana, and now Oregon are pretty much locks. And I think they want to get that 4th team in. USC couldn't get it done. And now Michigan's got a chance if they can beat Ohio State. It's a really nice resume point right there on the last week of the season. And I don't remember how all those tiebreakers work, if they'd go to Indy or not. But yeah, I think they'd have a great opportunity if they win this game to get into that field. Yes, I could see them sneaking in there at number 11 and getting in.
For the Big Ten championship, Ohio State and Indiana have win and in situations to Indianapolis. Michigan and Oregon both need help in order to get there. Those are the 4 teams that are in play. David, Lane Kiffin, this is probably the biggest coaching news that's going to be around the whole circuit. Eli Drinkwitz signed an extension today with Missouri, so his name probably removed from the Penn State coaching search. But Lane Kiffin, LSU's the favorite right now. He's sitting at Ole Miss. Florida's been in the mix. The word on the street is that LSU's nearing a deal with him. Do you think that's what's going to happen here? Lane's had a lot of drama, as per Lane, anytime Lane Kiffin's in the news. But it looks like he's going to head to LSU.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The longer it goes, the less I feel like he's going to take another job. But I think they really said all along we'll hear more after the Egg Bowl. So I expect on Sunday, really, we're going to find out what Lane Kiffin's doing for next year. Ultimately, I don't know. I thought LSU at the beginning, certainly a lot of momentum there early, and still today there's some momentum. I feel less confident in saying it than I did a week ago, but I do think LSU is ultimately where he ends up. Um, Ole Miss is a great program, and he's had success there, and it seems like a great culture fit for both sides. But can Lane himself pass up the allure of going to LSU? I don't know that he can. So I think ultimately that's where he ends up, and it'll be really interesting to see probably on Sunday what happens here if he stays with Ole Miss through the playoff, assuming they win, and just what happens there.
Yeah, you bring up Ole Miss with the playoff. I think that's a really unfortunate thing for Rebels fans, the football team program itself. If Lane decides to go to LSU and they say, no, you can't coach. But also, even if Lane says he's going, is his focus really going to be all on the playoff push because he's losing days at LSU? So divided attention is not good for anybody. And Ole Miss is just going to be the product of an unfortunate calendar for college football moves, and it's part of the business. But that would really stink for Ole Miss, where it's having one of its best seasons really in recent memory. Last year, there was a lot of talk that they would go to the playoff. They missed it this year. There was some hesitation on whether they could get there. Well, they've played really well, and they're setting up for a home playoff game right now. But David, if LSU and Lane Kiffin agree on a deal and he decides not to coach through the playoff, there's a chance the committee could hold it against Ole Miss a little bit here. Maybe they fall out of a home playoff game into an away game. There's no way they fall out of the bracket without a loss. But that would be something that's also unfortunate for Ole Miss if that were to happen too.
Yeah, I mean they gotta like where they stand, and you're right. It's just such a paradox on the field and off the field right now. You're so happy with how the seasons went, and you're proud, frankly, of Lane for the job he's been able to do and get this team into the position they've been in the last couple of years. But you're also disappointed that one, he's even looking around, and two, the fact that he might actually take one of these jobs. So it's got to be frustrating, a double-edged sword for Ole Miss fans. I feel sorry for you guys out there. But hopefully it all works out in your favor. They make the playoff, Lane sticks around, and everybody has a good old time.
Yeah, we're certainly going to see this weekend. We're going to have some news for you probably the next time that we put out a show, which will be Monday morning. David, let's move now to the slated games this week. The greatest rivalry in sports, Ohio State, Michigan. The game, Ohio State 11-0, Michigan 9-2. The Buckeyes have lost four straight, not won the game since 2019. David, I'm looking through this game. I'm trying to figure out, where Ohio State's gone wrong in the last couple of years. And there's two stats that really stick out to me. They were in an article that I put out Thursday morning. Ohio State's not forced a fourth quarter punt since 2019 for Michigan. And Ohio State is 2 for 5 on field goals in the last two versions of the game. And I think both of those are going to come into play major factors again this Saturday in Ann Arbor. But also the field goal kicking game for Michigan as well. Dominic Zavada, he's 2 for his last 5. He's really struggling this year, just 12 for 19. He was hitting 95% of his kicks, made a 54-yarder last year. That ended up being the difference in the game. Ohio State missed 2 kicks. Michigan made theirs, and they won the game by 3. David, the setup of this game, what makes it different? What do you see when you look at this matchup between the Buckeyes and the Wolverines here in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, this is the one thing now left on Ryan Day's list, um, is to beat Michigan for the first time since his first year as the head coach in 2019. And he's got a great shot to do it again. He said that last year. And it didn't go well. It just seemed like some brain cramps. Obviously, the rumored Will Howard concussion, a couple of missed field goals, and ultimately they lost. But everybody will tell you it was a good thing because it led them to a national championship. So now we're back here in 2025. Ohio State once again is in the playoffs, regardless of what happens in this game. But they're sitting there with an opportunity to get back to Indianapolis for the first time since 2020, to beat Michigan for the first time since 2019, and to do it on the road with a veteran group, a defense that's been really good all year long. And yeah, that fourth quarter stat you mentioned with Jim Knowles these last couple of years, it's been rough. Some of that obviously probably attributed, especially in the earlier years, 2021, 2022, to that sign stealing. 2023, 2024, not so much. Um, but regardless, now it's a clean slate. Ohio State seems to be fresh. They're ready. But so is Michigan, and they know what it takes to beat Ohio State. They've done it 4 years in a row. These guys don't know losing to Ohio State. And ultimately, that's a pretty big. Playing this game at home is a pretty big deal for Michigan. So I'm really excited. It's going to be a good one, as it always is. And just another chapter in the greatest rivalry in sports, like you said.
David, it being in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, you could see the vibe around the coaches and the players, and it seems a lot more loose. I'm not saying it's careless or anything like that, but there was a bit of an uptightness and an intensity for the last couple of years, and now it seems a lot more loose. Ryan Day's message all year has been, it's about us. We're going to keep the process. We're going to stick to our routine. Ohio State's actually flying to Ann Arbor on Friday instead of taking the traditional 3-hour bus ride, as used to be tradition. And Ryan Day's logic on that was, what we've done for the last 4 years hasn't worked. We're trying to look at everything and to make it as routine as possible. The band was moved off of this week. Senior tackle's been moved out of this week. The game is not played on the third Saturday in November anymore. It's Thanksgiving week. You kind of lose a day and a half because of the holiday. So now they're going to fly up there, keep it in that road game kind of routine. The psyche in this game, the psychological advantage. You were just talking about a little bit at the end of your take, where Michigan doesn't know what it's like to lose. Ohio State doesn't know what it's like to win with these current rosters. So from the Ohio State perspective, how do they get their monkey off of their back? Do you think Ryan Day's approach, keeping it about the routine, making it about the process, is the right way to do that? Do you see it differently?
No, I mean, Ohio State just needs to play their game of football. And you say that, but it's like, look, you're going to have Jeremiah Smith back. You may or may not have Carnell Tate, but either way, you got to just air it out and play your game. Do what works for you. Do what's been successful for you all year long. Do what led you to a national championship victory a year ago. And you don't have to run between the tackles 30 times. You don't have to be uptight. Just play your game on offense and defense. If they do that, they'll win like they have all year long.
David, Bryce Underwood and Julian Sayin, these are the two quarterbacks in this game. Bryce Underwood's a true freshman. Julian Sayin's a redshirt freshman. They're having different seasons, but I think true freshman, all things considered, with the road games he's had, Bryce Underwood's having a decent year. I would actually say a good year. They're 9-2. He's got to face Matt Patricia's defense. What problems could Patricia's defense pose for Underwood that Wink Martindale and Michigan's defense can't pose for Sam because of his wide receivers? When you look at the weapons that Julian Sayin has, it's Jeremiah Smith, it's Brandon Ennis, it's Max Clare, potentially Carnell Tate as well, not to mention a stable of running backs and a good offensive line. For Bryce Underwood, it's pretty much a banged up Jordan Marshall at running back, and then Andrew Marsh is probably the best receiver Michigan's had in about a decade. There's different weapons at the disposal. The stables look different at these two schools. So how can Matt Patricia affect the true freshman Bryce Underwood, even in his home stadium?
Well, it's been the Matt Patricia show all year long. He's befuddled a lot of these quarterbacks, and he's had experience going against good ones. Even going back to week one, Arch Manning, he's played Luke Altmaier, who's been excellent throughout his career, Damon Williams up in Washington. There's been a lot of good quarterbacks up and down the line, and they've pretty much stifled all of them. So I think, again, just play your game. Bryce has been inconsistent this year. The wide receiver play has been inconsistent at best this year. Jordan Marshall banged up. He'll be good to go. He'll certainly play. We'll see how effective he's able to be, if he can be 100%. They have a good backup in Kuzdal, but this is ultimately a game that's probably going to be close. It's probably going to come down to the fourth quarter. And Ohio State just needs that stop like they weren't able to get with Jim Knowles, like you mentioned, these last couple of years. And I think that Matt Patricia is a guy who's, look, I mean, he's been in so many Super Bowls. He's been in big game after big game after big game in his career. He's not going to be intimidated by this. He's going to call his game, and it's ultimately probably going to be on the players to execute what he's calling, because I have full confidence that Super Bowl champion, multiple time defensive coordinator Matt Patricia, who's been excellent all year, can continue to call plays. So it's going to come down to execution, and that's really what it's been about for Ohio State.
David, Max Bredesen also for Michigan is another player to watch in terms of health. He's their fullback. Michigan being without their fullback and Justice Haynes, I think that would cause a lot of problems. Now, Bredesen did say that he's trending in the right direction. He's going to try to give it a go. We'll see what his health percentage is on Saturday morning. Same with Carnell Tate. I think there's going to be a lot of guys that we're going to see suited up. Don't know how available or able to play that they're going to be. But last thing here before we move off of this game, David, the weather. We asked Ryan Day about this last night, and Austin Saravel. They both had the same response. Saravel being an offensive lineman, knowing that this is the kind of weather he grew up loving. He's like, I love it. This is for us. This is an opportunity for our offensive line to go out there and dominate. Ryan Day said it doesn't affect us at all. It's the same for both teams. And focusing on the weather would be a distraction because our focus has to be on doing our job. There is snow in the forecast, likely going to be in the second half, probably late third quarter into the fourth quarter. How does the weather affect how you view this game, knowing the history of it, where the snow came in to be a factor in 2021? Does the snow have any bearing on this game at all? Or is this something where all the social media meteorologists are trying to make it out more than it needs to be?
I think that you can't worry about it. What's it gonna? I mean, you just got to play the game as it comes. And I don't think it's worth talking about. I liked Ryan Day's answer. You just got to play football, whether it's raining or snowing or beautiful or hot or cold or whatever. You're gonna have to play the game on the field. And I don't even think it's worth discussing. You worry about it in the moment. That's the type of thing you worry about in the moment. You can't really prepare for it. You can if it snows, you can practice in the snow. If it rains, you can practice in the rain. But ultimately, once you get out there, it's going to be different. So it's hard to prepare for. It's not really much you can do in terms of that. Obviously, you can bring appropriate gear and do as much practice as you can. But I like Ryan Day's answer, and it's just not something that is really worth focusing on if you're Ohio State.
I mean, the cold weather too in November, it happens. He said that's part of Big Ten football. It's what you expect. And it's been chilly here in Columbus. It's been chilly up in Ann Arbor. So again, just getting Sayin, the California kid, comfortable. I think he will be. And like you said, you just got to play in it. This is football. This is what you expect in the Big Ten. It's late November. That's what it's going to be. We're going to pick this game here at the end of the next segment. But let's move to Texas A&M, Texas quickly. Dave, this game's on Friday. Texas with a win. Can they make the college football playoff, or do you think they're too far outside the field to jump up that high, even though a win would be over Texas A&M, ranked number 3, and then a loss to Ohio State being the number 1 team in the country, assuming they take care of business against Michigan?
I don't think they do. This is a for them. Their strength, but you look at that Florida game. That's the one you're circling, right? You can't lose to Florida. If they were just able to, they're clearly one of the top 12 teams in the country. If you lose to number 1 Ohio State or wherever Ohio State were to end up, even if they were to lose to Michigan, they'd still be in the top 5 probably. So you look at Ohio State, then Texas A&M, who would be undefeated and probably would be number 2 or number 1, if Ohio State were to lose to Michigan. So. Um, you just got to circle back to that Florida game, and ultimately, I think it keeps them out. The way Florida into the year is just not a justifiable third loss for me, and I think they're on the outside looking in for that reason.
David, something we noticed with Texas is they were built up to be this powerhouse national champion, Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback. Those things have not panned out. Okay, but Texas's defense we knew was still really good, but all of a sudden they've given up over 30 points in the last couple of games. Texas A&M has given up points this season over 40 multiple times. This game could have potentially be a shootout out in DKR. So when we're seeing this game and Texas's path to victory with Arch Manning, they really have to turn on the offense. That's something they have not done this season. A&M, on the other hand, they have. Marcel Reed, they found themselves down by 4 scores to South Carolina at the half. They came back and they won the game. Inexcusable by Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks to blow a lead that big, especially on the road. What's the path to an upset for Texas in this game? Or do you think that Texas actually is the better team and Texas A&M, because they haven't played any of the top 8 teams in the SEC, is going to get exposed in this game on Friday night?
I'm not sure who the better team is. I'm excited for this one. Arch has been playing much better as of late. They kind of stumbled there in Athens, but that's not necessarily a huge surprise. Other games have been really good offensively. And, if they can keep that up, a home game, a night game, this is certainly a game Texas can win. Only a 2.5 point spread, and I think that's a good line. Um, Texas A&M, you're right. They haven't played anybody. The top 8 teams in the SEC or whatever, they have not played. The best team they played probably at Missouri. Obviously, they had that win over Notre Dame early in the year, able to win that on the road. That's an impressive win as well. But the SEC schedule has been pretty underwhelming. And going to Texas, I don't want to say this is like a trap game because I don't think they're trapped. I think it's pretty obvious the task that's in front of them. But it just feels like, okay, they've gotten so far by the skin of their teeth. Like, does it finally come out from under them here in week 12? And I think it's certainly possible. This should be a great game.
I think it's going to be a great game as well. And we're going to pick this one again in the next segment here in just a second. David, there's 2 games on the upset board. One we're going to pick, the other one let's talk about just very briefly. Oregon is only a 6.5 point favorite at Washington. Washington's been up and down this year. They played Ohio State tough. They got dominated by Michigan, but Washington has the talent in order to keep up with Oregon. So I think they could be on upset alert there on the road. But then the Iron Bowl, Alabama only 6.5 points favorites at Auburn. Does that game concern you at all? Or do you think Alabama takes care of business and tries to solidify a spot in the playoff?
I think Oregon handles their business. I just don't. I'm not still not sold on Washington really. Hot early in the year with that offense, but it's still going to be a bowl team and a good bowl team. But I think Oregon is better than that spread is giving them credit for. And then that other game, Alabama Auburn. Last week if you would have asked me, I would have said Alabama rolls. Now I'm not so sure. Strange things happen at Auburn, and Alabama's lost these type of games before. So this will be an interesting one. Ultimately, I do think Alabama wins. I just think the talent disparity is too much, and I think that Caitlin DeBoer draws something up, and this is the type of game that they'll win. Um, but it could be wrong. That's what the greatness of this rivalry is. One of the best in college football, Alabama Auburn. So looking forward to the Iron Bowl as well as always, and really just a great slate on rivalry week. After last week, not so much.
Yeah, Caleb Downs was asked that last night because he's one of the few guys that have actually gotten to play in both games. He said they're both intense, the two best in college football. David, let's pick these games real quick. The first one is going to be Ole Miss. It's the Egg Bowl, favored by 7.5, potentially Lane Kiffin's final game on the Rebels sideline at Mississippi State. Who do you have in this one? Again, the Rebels favored by 7.5.
I like Ole Miss here. I think they get it done for their coach, regardless of what happens. I think it's kind of a runaway here. I think they win it in the fourth quarter pretty big.
I think Ole Miss wins as well. I think they solidify a playoff spot and lock up a home game. Miami at Pitt. This is one of the crucial games if Miami wants to make the college football playoff as an at-large team. Again, they need help and a prayer. They're favored by 6.5 at Pitt in some cold weather.
Yeah, this will be a fun one. Miami typically does not play well in the cold weather. This points to a Mario Cristobal letdown game. They want to have any chance at the college football playoff. But hey, I mean, look at what Pat Narduzzi said. He said before that Notre Dame game, I'm not focused on Notre Dame. I want to win the ACC. He gets blown out at Notre Dame, but comes back in Atlanta and beats Georgia Tech by 2 touchdowns. So this should be a fun one. I'm gonna take Miami because everything is pointing to Pitt. But don't be surprised if the pesky Panthers get this one in a cold weather game with Pat Narduzzi very focused on the ACC.
I'm going to take Miami as well. I think they can win this game by a touchdown. Next game is going to be Oregon at Washington. You hinted at your pick here. The Ducks favored by 6.5. David, do they cover?
Yes, they do. I think the Ducks win by a couple of touchdowns here, building some momentum from last week where they handled USC.
I think so too. I think Oregon wins. They take care of business, and they're getting hot at the right time. We're going to see the matchup that they draw in the college football playoff. Maybe they get a Big Ten championship game appearance. We'll see. Not likely, but I think Oregon's going to be a team to watch here down the stretch. They win and cover. Vanderbilt at Tennessee. This is one of the trickier games on the slate here. Tennessee is favored by 3.5 at home. David, do you think Diego Pavia, Clark Lee, and Vanderbilt have enough magic to go and win this game, get to 10 wins, and then force the College Football Playoff Committee to say, no, Vanderbilt, you're not going to get in it with 10 wins?
I think it's possible. I like Tennessee here at home. I think they're going to have a lot of energy there. And for that reason, but Diego Pavia does feed off that. So this should be a thriller. I think it'll be a shootout. But I like that number for 10. Tennessee, basically a pick 'em really when you factor in the home field advantage, but I do think Tennessee pulls it out.
Yeah, I've been back and forth on this one too because of the Pavia magic and how Vanderbilt has risen to the occasion every time this year. I think this is going to be one of the best games of the day. I think, though, Tennessee finds a way late to win this game. Georgia Tech, this game last year went to multiple overtimes. Georgia Tech should have won. They blew it. They have a second chance here. They've not been playing well in the back half of the season. So Georgia is playing well. I think they're the best team in the SEC right now. They're favored by 13.5 on the road. David, is that point spread too big, or is Georgia just that good and they're going to run away with this game?
It's not too big. I like Georgia here. Georgia Tech, the magic is out. They lost last week to Pitt by a couple scores. I think they lose to Georgia by a couple scores.
I liked Georgia Tech originally in this game, and then I saw how they've been playing throughout the month of November. I've cooled on them a lot, just like you said. I'm with you. I think Georgia wins and Georgia covers. Texas A&M favored by 2.5 at Texas. David, we previewed this game earlier. What's your official pick in this game? Because I was expecting, just basing off of rankings, A&M would be favored by a little bit more. That is not the case. This is basically a pick 'em. What do you think?
This is a tough one. I think I'm going to take Texas. I'm not really thrilled about it, but kind of like what I was saying earlier, that A&M magic could run out here, and at 11-0, you feel really good, but I'm not sure they make it to 12. I'm going to go with the Longhorns.
This is one of my preseason picks when I look at the slate and I kind of pick the games of the year. I've had Texas since the summer. I'm going to roll with Texas outright in this game. I think they get it done at home in a huge game and then have the playoff committee make a decision on if 9-3 Texas deserves to be in the field as an at-large team. David, the game of the week, Ohio State at Michigan, the game. Buckeyes lost the last four, have a chance to right the ship here in 2025 with Julian saying Jeremiah Smith. He said that he will not lose again. We're going to find out if that happens. He will turn 20 years old on Saturday. It is his birthday. The Buckeyes are favored by 9.5 against the Wolverines. Who wins and what's the score?
Yeah, fun birthday game for Jeremiah Smith. I think he goes out there and plays well. I like Ohio State here. I'm not sure about the number, but I do think Ohio State finally beats Michigan for the first time since 2019. And Ryan Day finally gets that monkey off his back. The last one.
I am with you. I think all the changes that they have made in that program, I think you can study and you can study and you can prepare and you can prepare, but you eventually have to take the test. That test for Ryan Day and Ohio State is on Saturday, and I think they pass. I think Ohio State wins as well. I think it's a hard-fought game. I think it's a really good game. I think Ohio State special teams. Think about the sentence that's going to come out of my mouth. I think Ohio State special teams outplays Michigan special teams for the first time since they last won the game. I think the Buckeyes get it done on special teams and they win this game. And Ryan Day moves to 2-4 against the Wolverines. The Buckeyes finish the regular season undefeated and head to Indianapolis for the first time since 2020. David, closing out the show, what are your final thoughts here as we head into rivalry week?
Well, you have made it very clear over the past couple of years that the games to remember are played in November, and this is the week, the game, all the other games. It'll be really fun. I'm excited. I'll be up in Ann Arbor, so I'll be watching, of course, Ohio State, Michigan, and then on the way back, we'll take in some of the other action. Should be a thrilling day, and I'm looking forward to it. And then we.
Yeah, this is going to be the best weekend of the year. It's going to set everything for the college football playoff field. We're going to get a good look, great results to come. We're going to set the conference championship games. But like you said, the games, remember, are played in November, none bigger than this weekend. David, safe travels to Ann Arbor. Enjoy the game. Everybody, thank you for listening to today's episode. We appreciate you tuning into the show. Make sure you check us out on social media at Saturday Cadence, at T Silver Bulletin, our website, tsilverbulletin.com. We're going to have coverage for you all weekend long on these games, especially Ohio State and Michigan, as it is the game of the week. Guys, enjoy rivalry weekend, and we will see you on the Monday show. God bless.